folks. Good news, bad news, time again. It is Monday, June 1st, the next month of this contract, and second to last month. This was only a 4-month contract, so we'll be ending in July 10th, if I remember correctly. Looking at the screen, you may notice a couple new faces. We'll get into that in a moment here. But for right now, I want to say that although this contract may give us some problems, it certainly has been okay overall for heightening our roster, especially after that last mission. Let's start there, shall we? Over in our repair bay, we managed to down 2 mechs and take them home, a marauder and a rifleman. The marauder we managed to take by just damaging its engine and gyro, just enough to not destroy either. He is a artist with that laser, Captain Kobe. He is a man among man, and if you just really couldn't ask for a better commander. By doing so, he managed to knock it out of the fight. Now, unfortunately, his last hit on its leg was a little bit overjudicious and melted the hip on it, which means we're going to have to replace the whole leg. No big deal, certainly nothing that we can't afford, and we've got a replacement coming in order to get that fixed up, and we will have a new mech, heavy mech in fact, and a long range one to add to our roster after that. This rifleman he decapitated with ease. It was kind of brutal what he did. We've ordered a replacement head, and it looks like it came in today, so we'll get started on installing that right after I've got this whole write-up finished. The Marauder is definitely becoming part of our team, but the Rifleman I'm less excited about. The Riflemen and all its variants are designed as anti-aircraft mechs, and uh, although they can do pretty well at that, the AC-5 gives them long range to deal with, and the large lasers give them some range to engage at. What they really have problems with overall is that they're a mech that doesn't have the ability to take what it can dish out. And I mean that in two different ways. First off, it's kind of lightly armored for what it is. At 114 at 195, it's a heavy that's kind of armored like a medium, and not even a particularly heavy armor medium, like a moderately armored medium. It's definitely designed to be a standoff mech with its AC-5s and large lasers, and those AC-5s give it some decent range, but they just don't have a heck of a lot of punch. Between the two of those, even with some modifications that I have included with this campaign to help make the AC-5s a little bit more balanced, like previously their tonnage versus their damage is just completely off. So they're a little better than they would normally be in Battletech, but they still just don't have much damage output for what they do. And on top of that, if we wanted to get these large lasers pumping, we can only really fire one a turn because we only have the standard complement of heat sinks. This is a design that really benefits from its upgrade that it gets from including Lost Tech, but unfortunately, any of the designs we could incorporate it into right now just have this same problem. They mount a bunch of weapons, but if you fire all of them, you're going to melt your pilot. And if you melt your pilot, well, then you're not going to have an active mech. It's just ridiculous. So likely we'll go ahead and reinstall the head on this one just in order to make it fully operational, get it ready for market. And once we have that operational, we may hold on to it for a little while just in case we lose any more big mechs, but probably end up selling it before we head off to our next endeavor. This Marauder, though, is going to be a permanent part of our roster as soon as it's repaired. 2 PPCs, 16 heat sinks, 18 when it's got everything fully manned. Or is that 16 default? Actually, it might be 16 default. But the 16 heat sinks means that it can fire both of those PPCs, be only a little bit overheated, nothing it can't eventually pump away. So you can kind of stagger the fire both PPCs one turn, then one the next, then both the next, so on and so forth. And the AC-5 can just fire whenever you need a little bit of extra oomph to your shots. It's an excellent sniper mech, decently armored, uh, standard speed for a mech. It's currently at 1-1, but that's just because it's missing a leg. With that leg on, it would move at 4-6, I believe, as its standard. So this is an excellent mech, and I look forward to getting someone into its pilot seat. We also gained a couple extra mechs other than through a daring raid by, well, he was ambushed, but still, daring applies to everything that Commander Kobe does. Over in our hangar, you can see that we also have picked up that Crusader I was talking about last month. The nice cheap Crusader that was sitting out for offering, and managed to put into it our Lieutenant Sheila Salami, uh, our headstrong lieutenant that managed to get her light mech blown up in one of those first engagements. It is kind of unfortunately embarrassing for us to have a lieutenant that did not have a mech, so we had to plug her into that one, and hopefully she'll treat this one a little more gently. We last time did pick up a Centurion. I believe I went over that we put our new highly trained or new well, actually highly trained also, but natural marksman pilot Li Swangong in there. Pugs, I think that her call sign name is. We haven't seen that one in action yet because the enemy hasn't generated us any missions all of last month except for that one ambush, but hopefully we'll be looking at a little more this time. Also new to our roster is this Hermes 2. It's a light medium, by which I mean it is technically a medium mech, but at 40 tons, it is the lightest a medium mech could be. Pretty much just a light mech, except that it can mount a fair bit more armor, and this particular model does so at the expense of its weapon loadout. At an AC-5 medium laser and flamer only, this is an extremely lightly armed mech. It cannot generate enough heat, in fact, to go past its heat sinks, so it can just go balls out every single turn, but once it's run through that AC-5 ammo, it just can't put out a lot of damage. Fortunately, it's very speedy. At speed 6, it is about the speed of your normal light in a medium package, so it can definitely do some good work. But the important part to this one was that it came with Master Sergeant Numair Saeed. Let's take a quick look at this guy. This guy showed up on our marketplace and is a fine example of why you kind of benefit from having one of your first hires for your administrator role be HR. The bonuses that they give to the roles that you get you guys like this. Gunnery 2, piloting 3. He's actually more skilled than Commander Kobe. Uh, well, actually, no, just exactly as skilled. My bad. Sorry, Commander. I forgot that about the bonuses that you got for being a commander. Was remembering your original generation. But also, Tactic 6 does mean that he's better at that than our commander. On top of that, he has a number of special abilities not listed here, but let me just quickly go take a look at him in this mode. Da, 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 He's got dodge, an ability that allows you to, instead of making a physical attack, just kind of jank to the side and make it harder to hit. No problem. Hopping jack, which kind of is weird because his mech doesn't have jump jets, so presumably at some point he did. But the actual interesting thing is a gunnery specialization in ballistic. That means that for all ballistic weapons, like AC-10s, AC-20s, machine guns, so on, he manages to get a -1 to his target numbers to hit. So he's going to be pretty accurate with that AC-5, and come to think of it, would be a pretty good candidate to put in something like that rifleman. But I think I'm going to wait until I get something like, say, a Hunchback or something that can pack a couple AC-10s, maybe a AC-20, big nasty punch, and let his skill in that particular weapon show. In any case, he's extremely skilled, and I look forward to seeing him in action. His light mech might not be capable of much, but with his speed and skill, he'll definitely be an asset to the team, especially once we get him in something a little heavier than he's currently in. Uh, Everyone else on the list is someone that you have seen here before. Because these people may have had some stuff added to them, I haven't really been keeping careful track of who all I've put additional backstory on or not, I'll go ahead and just scroll through them slowly so that if you can, if you give a crap, you can take a look at the backstory I've written up for them. Still haven't done everyone, but I still also haven't hit the point at which I'm going to make my rolls for drama, although it is June, so that would be coming at the end of this month. So July's update is going to potentially be an entertaining one. Support personnel, we're still looking at pretty much the same loadout. We've got a bit more XP this last month, but unfortunately still not really enough to push anyone over the edge for gaining any new levels. We're keeping working on it. Eventually, I'm sure that we'll come up with something. I don't think we didn't have any new dependents added during any of the last months. In fact, this most recent special event, well, let me talk about it for a moment. So, a special event is rolled each month. You've probably figured that out already, at least. But one of the options it can come up with is treachery. Treachery doesn't necessarily mean that our employer has turned on us, but what it does mean is that the employer fucked up. Well, who the hell is surprised? We've got, this time, bad information from the employer. Apparently, those Draconis goons weren't as scared as they said they were. The fact that they didn't see any activity on the horizon wasn't because they were running away scared, it's because they were recruiting their forces. The next enemy morale roll gets a +1, and look at that, the enemy morale increased from from very low to just low. So that means that we're more likely to see some encounters. You'll recall one of the busiest months we had on this thing, the month of April, was while the enemy was on low. So we may be seeing another several hammer blows of encounters to deal with, which wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, because over here in the briefing room we've got still have a bit of a problem. Our contract score is at -4. We managed to get it up a little bit by winning a pair of missions recently. Oh, look, we do have one this week. Cool. But winning a pair of missions this week, and the fact that we didn't reduce the enemy to routing this time, it makes it look really unlikely that we are going to actually rout the enemy at all. Routing the enemy would require them to have already been very low for a likely chance. The chance of them going from low to routing is pretty unlikely and would rely on me winning a whole bunch of matches, shutting them down, destroying a lot of their mechs. If we can pull that off, great. We do have we do have a much heavier roster now than what we had at the start of April. Just thanks to some purchases and some new mechs that we managed to get by action, mostly Commander Kobe's. Just I can't stop praising him. Just he brought home 2 heavy mechs after duking it out with 3 and sending the third running home. What a guy! What a guy! Uh. Anyway, um, we do need some encounters, and we need to win those encounters if we're going to have a chance of actually succeeding on this contract. If we can get 4 encounters and win 4 encounters, well, then we're still at 0. So we need to win 5 encounters in a row in order to get this up to a reasonable level. Now, why this special event is kind of helpful, this is an employer minor breach. So we were previously, right now we are at 4, but at the end of this month, or end of this week, we should be at -3, because every employer minor breach counts as a bonus on our contract. You know, that issue that we had with us having a minor breach because our allies kept losing their mechs? Yeah, well, that works in reverse too. It's just it's much more unlikely for the employer to actually get blamed. But short story here is, Jesus Christ, Steiner, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you so hideously incompetent at this? This entire thing has been a shit show from start to finish, and I'm quite frankly embarrassed to be employed by you. We may avoid Steiner contracts in the future just because this has been such a clusterfuck. This really left a bad taste in my mouth. In any case, let's talk about that heavier roster I was mentioning. So over here, you probably noticed a few new faces. Sergeant Li Suangong, that sharpshooter I was talking about, has been added to Central Lance. We did that last month. Big Sky Lance has been moved around a bit. The addition of this Hermes actually allows us to rebalance some things, and Hog was moved down here, Babe moved up here, so that we actually have Central Lance operating at a slightly higher tonnage. It's 250 out of 280, so it's closer to that heavy cap. Big Sky Lance is currently operating at exactly the amount you need for medium, 200, and all of its mechs are speed 5 or better, and as such should be able to show up on first turns. Trebuchet speed 5, right? Yeah. Should be able to show up on first turn of its recon missions. Although, did I set them to recon? I might have set them to fight. Yeah, I think I set these guys to recon. Firebrand Lance. So Sheila has gotten back into Firebrand Lance, except this time she's bringing along a much heavier mech, this Crusader, and is bringing with her the Dervish, that mech that I was talking about being worried about because it's a powder keg. One of our mech warriors that we haven't been able to field at all yet, Corporal Katie Tripp, Icicle, who's currently still sitting in one of our few remaining light mechs. Ugh. And also Private Pia Croce, Dagger, who is our only green, sitting in a Wolverine. This is also just 5 tons short of what we expect to see in a medium lance, and I've set them to be a scout lance, which is perhaps not the best idea now that I look at it, but you know what? No, it's the better idea because generally scout lance fights are much lighter, involve fighting a lot more vehicles than heavy mechs. And although we've got this Crusader in here taking up a lot of tonnage, the rest of our tonnage isn't super great. This Wolverine, good mech, not great pilot. This Dervish, good pilot, not great mech. This Wasp, okay pilot, it's a Wasp, it's a 20 tonner. In any case, Firebrand Lance is mostly there to try to proc additional contact from the enemy. Hopefully, to get more encounters with some like vehicle squads that we can go and stomp on, get some more successes, and get out into the fight. Not to mention the fact that it will be able to reinforce on our other encounters if it doesn't get any itself. Uh, we only have one mech warrior that's not really deployed right now, if I remember correctly. Double check that. Uh, Yeah, we've got no two that aren't deployed to a force. One is Laura Henstock, our Twinkle Toes, who lost her light mech in that last encounter, and we haven't quite gotten her one yet. We're working on it. Maybe she'll go into uh, the new Marauder. Was she the one that had advantages? No, she wouldn't be. We have somewhere here who is a laser expert, but in general, you try not to strip try not to strip people out of their mechs unless it is necessary. And in this case, we've got an empty mech warrior, we've got a brand new mech. It just makes sense to get a new mech operational rather than giving hand-me-down mechs to this person, just kind of story-wise. But the only active mech we have not in the squad is Corporal Mike Manasseh here and his urban mech. I'm sorry, dude, you showed up in an urban mech. What did you expect? It is not my fault you showed up in an R2-D2 with legs and a cannon strapped to it. It's That was your decision. Clearly, you kind of padded your resume, man. In any case, Uh, although I'm not feeling too great about our chances of completing this contract with a positive review from our employer, I am feeling pretty good at how much the company as a whole has grown. We've added a bunch of new mechs to our roster. We've gotten some very talented pilots. We already started with some very talented support crew. So I figure in the future we'll be doing well. Oh, one thing I forgot to touch on, the unit market for this month. So unit market for this month has been semi kind to us. There's a bunch of uh, mechs here that would be okay pickups. Well, actually, only really one, come to think of it. The rest of these are like locusts and wasps and all sorts of garbage. But this Orion is a heavy mech and a heavily armored heavy mech. It is just a thick slab of armor, a wall on the battlefield, and it makes up for that by the fact that it's not particularly heavily armed. With two medium lasers, an LRM-15, SRM-4, and an AC-10. The AC-10 is the main damage dealer it has. That can pop out a fair amount of damage at a decent range for not terribly much heat. The AC-10 is kind of like a PPC, except it puts out way less heat, but it requires ammo. So trade-offs in everything. The LRM-15 gives it a little more long striking range, and the medium lasers and SRM-4 give it a little close striking range, but not terribly much in either for a heavy mech. Its real job is to go out there to soak up damage, to get close to enemies, and to use its 75 tons worth of kicking power to break their legs and get your money out of them. It's would be a pretty nice mech to add to our list just because it's another heavy, and in general, I like going super heavy. I mean, as much as I bitch about Steiner, I'm a Steiner at heart. It's just, I'm a Steiner who also likes to think for half a second before sending his troops into the fray. And also, I try not to put my troops into frickin' stingers. What are you guys doing? Now, also of interesting note is that there are two vehicles on here that wouldn't be terrible to pick up. The Demolisher Heavy Tank is a big fuck off assault tank. 40 armor on the front, 20 on the rear, but 40 on the turret. It is just thick slabs of armor. Like, for comparison, this Orion is packing 36 on its front, and it's a heavy mech, counts as 75 tons. This Demolisher, despite being 80 tons, is pretty much only counts as 40 tons of mech, as much as that Hermes we have. But with a thick slab of 40 armor on the front and the main armament of two AC-20s in the turret, if this thing trundles close to an enemy, it can riggedy wreck them. It would be just awful to see the results. Now, unfortunately, using this means that I need to see if the crew market actually coughs up anything. Oh, quick reminder. You may be wondering where a couple of mech pieces were, like a couple things that were in our hangar were, like that tank that we got earlier, the Rommel. Yeah, I had to sell those in order to pick up the Crusader, but I think fair trade. Now, this Demolisher, though, would be an excellent pickup, as would be the let's see here, not the Saladin. What else do we have here? This Partisan heavy tank. It's just got AC5s, but it's got four AC5s. That's a fair amount of punch at a long range and allows you to just kind of put shots down range for, well, 5 straight turns because it's only got, and actually I guess 10 straight turns because it's got 20 shots. And just being able to sit in one spot and kind of pump out AC5 shots over and over and over and over, give it a pretty respectable amount of damage. Not as much as the Demolisher, but it's able to deliver it from a much longer range. If we can find a vehicle crew, then picking up either of these might not be a bad addition, especially if I do finally plan on having some mixed forces armaments. Although, in order to get that done, okay, something I haven't explained. This one's going to run a little long for a just a monthly catch up. But hey, I'm still dialing in how exactly these things should go. So bear with me a moment. Bear with me. When we got this contract, we got it at integrated, and integrated means that two ally mechs come in under computer control. This sucks for two reasons. First off, the one that you've seen most of the time, these guys are imbeciles. They are just pants on head retarded and cannot be trusted to make their own life choices. Integrated is awful, and I had forgotten how terrible it was. If I had, I might have never taken this contract. Certainly going to try to avoid that in the future. I've mentioned this before that the next worst is House. That's just one of those guys. Then there's Independent when we get none of them, and then there's Liaison and we get one of them, but it's under our control. It's either or on which one of those is worse. Because let's talk a bit about how mech lances are weighed. So a lance is restricted by two different things: tonnage and numbers. In the inner sphere, which is the general geopolitical group that we are involved in, and the primary area of the galaxy for the first part of the BattleTech setting. Spoilers, in a couple of years, we'll be seeing some assholes up here that won't consider themselves inner sphere. Uh, in the BattleTech setting, the inner sphere has a general setup for how lances are done, and even though nobody can agree on anything, they all agree that this is more or less how armies should be dispositioned. So the basic lance is between 3 and 6 mechs. No more, no less than 3 to 6 mechs. If you don't have 3 mechs, it's not a lance. If you have more than 6 mechs, you got to break that shit up. Because we have two allies on each mission, the maximum size we can go is 4. Because although they don't count against our tonnage for determining what weight of a lance it is, and the basic measurements for that are escape me for exactly the moment, but essentially what I do know is 280 is the maximum tonnage for a heavy. 200 is the maximum tonnage for a medium. 130, I believe, is the maximum tonnage for a light, and an assault is somewhere in the 300s. I'm pretty sure that you can't field 4 freaking 100-ton assault mechs, at least in uh, general inner sphere rules, but whatever, don't worry about that part too much. They don't count against our weight tonnage, but they do count against our numbers for terms of how much we can field in a lance. And because we've got 2 of those assholes taking up effectively 2 spots in each one of these, we can only field up to 4 people. Otherwise, I might have already integrated some of these lances, made some big fuck-off lances carrying around 6 people at a time. And that's why the integrated is just a giant pain in the ass. Because not only do you have 2 of your potential slots taken up, they're taken up by complete chuckle fucks. Independent or liaison is kind of 50-50 on whether you think that's good or bad. On the one hand, it means that there's one additional mech that you don't have to potentially risk. On the other hand, it means that you've got a mech that you have to be very careful about risking, because if you blow it up, your boss gets mad at you. 50-50. I'm generally okay with that. I'm I think I'd be pretty okay with House too, because if there's just one of these chuckle fucks, at least you can babysit them. But this has just been a giant pain in the ass. But uh, lost my train of thought there. But that's pretty much the position that we're in at the start of June. We've got a couple mechs to finish fixing up. One of them will probably get sold. One of them will go into active use. We've got 3 full lances again. We are looking at one fight coming up. I'll go ahead and save what's going on for there at the start of the next mission. We've got a bit of problem in finally saving face with our employers, but hopefully the enemy will toss a couple easy challenges at us and we can show, yeah, we weren't fucking about too much. It was entirely your fault, you idiots, you complete back-assward, stupid fucking armchair generals. Just stop thinking that you understand anything about war, because it's pretty clear that you're playing fucking Risk over there, while the rest of us are playing at least StarCraft. It's just a mess. But we will persevere. We will survive. We will make some money, and if we get a bad review on Yelp, then fuck it, we'll still manage. All right. that's the state of where we are, and I will see you guys. See you guys for the next fight. Oh, assassin!